Why is a sick child being turned away from a room her father's name built? The question seemed to hang in the bright hotel lobby before anyone had the courage to answer it. Daniel R. Hayes stood soaked beside the marble counter, one arm around Ava, while his old charity card lay rejected near a half-hidden white keycard. Behind the desk, Brent Cole lifted a hand toward security. "Sir, you need to step outside." Ava tugged her father's wet sleeve and pointed at the Golden Founders wall. "Daddy, that's your name." 3 hours earlier, the rain had started as a thin silver mist over the children's hospital parking lot. By the time Daniel carried Ava across the street, it had turned hard and cold, tapping against the medicine bottles inside the plastic pharmacy bag. Ava was 8, small for her age, with tired eyes that noticed things adults tried to hide. She did not complain when Daniel's jacket slipped off his shoulder and left his shirt damp. She only pressed her cheek against him and whispered, "I can walk, Daddy." Daniel looked down at her sneakers. Both laces double-knotted the way he always tied them before hospital visits. "I know you can," he said softly. "But tonight, let me be useful." The hotel doors opened with a warm mechanical sigh. Inside, everything smelled of lemon polish, coffee, and expensive perfume. The lobby was too bright, too clean, too quiet for a man dripping rainwater onto the tile. A brass sign beside the front desk read, "Family Care Lodging Partner." Under it, a smaller plaque promised comfort for families receiving pediatric treatment next door. Daniel saw the words, then looked away. Promises were easier to hang on walls than to keep at midnight. Marisol Grant stood behind the desk in a navy blazer, her name tag tilted slightly crooked. She looked young, tired, and careful in the way people look when they have been corrected too many times in one shift. Daniel placed the old charity card on the counter with 2 fingers, not pushing, not demanding. The card was worn soft at the corners. Its faded logo still showed a small house cupped inside 2 hands. "My daughter has an early check at the hospital," he said. "They told us the family lodging program could help for one night." Marisol scanned the card. The computer gave a sharp red beep. Ava flinched. On the screen, reflected in Marisol's glasses, Daniel saw the words appear in red. "Charity stay unavailable." Marisol swallowed. Her eyes moved from the card to Ava's hospital bracelet, then toward a door behind the desk. "I'm sorry," she said, too quickly. "There are no approved rooms tonight." Daniel heard the word approved, and something inside him went still. He did not argue. He only shifted Ava higher against his side and asked, "Could she sit for 5 minutes while I call the hospital back?" Before Marisol could answer, Brent Cole stepped from the office as if he had been listening the whole time. His suit was smooth, his smile practiced, but his eyes went first to Daniel's wet boots, then to the small puddle forming beneath them. "We can't turn the lobby into a waiting room," Brent said, "especially not during a sold-out night." Daniel nodded once, as though the words had landed somewhere far away. Then he crouched, wiped a raindrop from Ava's chin with his thumb, and whispered, "Breathe slow, baby." Behind him, Marisol's hand drifted toward a white keycard half-hidden beneath a stack of check-in folders. Brent saw the movement and rested 2 fingers on the counter. Not hard, just enough to stop her. And that was when Daniel noticed the tiny black print on the folder Brent was trying to cover. Room 614 Family Suite. Daniel did not stare at the folder for long. He had learned years ago that the quickest way to lose a truth was to grab at it too soon. So he only let his eyes pass over the tiny black print once, Room 614 Family Suite, before lifting his hand from the counter and placing it gently on Ava's shoulder. Brent followed Daniel's glance anyway. His smile did not disappear, but it tightened at the corners, like a door being locked from the inside. "Sir," Brent said, his voice smooth enough for the nearby guests to hear, "I understand this is stressful, but looking over private check-in documents is not permitted." Marisol's fingers froze beside the stack of folders. The lobby lights hummed above them, white and polished, turning every wet mark Daniel had left on the tile into something visible. Ava leaned closer to her father's side. Her hospital bracelet made a faint plastic sound against the sleeve of his denim jacket. "I wasn't looking for trouble," Daniel said. I'm looking for a place my daughter can sleep before her appointment. And I have explained, Brent replied. There are no approved rooms tonight. Approved? Daniel repeated softly. Brent's eyes flicked to him. Available, approved, however you prefer to phrase it. Those are not the same thing. A small silence opened between them. It was not loud enough for the whole lobby to notice, but Marisol noticed. Her throat moved as she swallowed, and her eyes dropped to Daniel's old charity card still lying on the counter, its faded logo damp at one corner from his sleeve. Brent picked up the card between two fingers, not rudely enough to be accused of disrespect, but not carefully either. He looked at it as if it were something found in a parking lot. These older cards create confusion, he said. Families sometimes keep them after eligibility changes. Sometimes people pass them around. Sometimes they don't understand that a charitable program has rules. Daniel's jaw moved once. Ava looked up at him, searching his face for permission to be afraid. He gave her a small nod, the kind that meant stay calm. I am still here. That card was given to me by the hospital lodging desk, Daniel said. They told me to bring it here. The hospital doesn't run this hotel. Brent placed the card back down, this time closer to Daniel, as if moving Daniel himself 1 inch farther from the desk. We partner when space allows. Tonight, space does not allow. Behind Daniel, the automatic doors opened with a rush of cold air. A family in travel coats entered, laughing quietly under a wide black umbrella. The father rolled 2 expensive suitcases across the tile. The mother glanced at Ava's pale face, at the pharmacy bag, at the water dripping from Daniel's cuffs, and then guided her own child a little closer to her side. Not cruelly, not openly, just enough. Daniel saw it. Ava saw it too. He bent and took the pharmacy bag from her hand, so she would not have to keep clutching it. You can lean on me, he murmured. I'm not tired. You are, Ava whispered. Not in any way that matters. Brent stepped half a pace to the side, placing his body between Daniel and the covered folder. Mr. Hayes, was it? He asked, though Daniel had never said his last name aloud at the counter. Marisol's eyes lifted quickly, then dropped. We have several high-priority arrivals tonight. Children's hospital weekends are complicated. Emotions run high. We try to keep the lobby comfortable for everyone. She's not making anyone uncomfortable, Daniel said. She's 8. Brent softened his face, and somehow that made the words worse. No one is blaming the child. He looked toward the small puddle beneath Daniel's boots. But we do have standards of safety and presentation. Wet floors, medical distress, unverified charity claims. These things have to be managed. Managed. The word landed harder than if he had shouted. Ava tucked her chin down. Daniel took a folded napkin from the coffee station beside the counter and crouched to wipe the rainwater from the tile himself. His knees cracked slightly when he bent. One guest looked away. Another watched over the rim of a paper cup. Brent did not stop him. Marisol did. Or tried to. Sir, you don't have to do that, she said. Daniel kept wiping. I know. Housekeeping can handle it. They have enough to do. He gathered the wet napkin in his hand and stood slowly, careful not to jostle Ava. That small act, quiet and unnecessary, struck Marisol harder than any complaint would have. She looked again at the card, then at the folder Brent had covered. The corner had shifted. Under Brent's fingers, the printed line was almost hidden now, but not completely. 614 Family Suite. VIP arrival. Brent turned toward the security guard near the door and raised 2 fingers. Not a snap, not a command anyone could call cruel. Just a signal. The guard began walking over, shoes tapping softly against the glossy floor. Let's not escalate this, Brent said. I'm going to ask security to help you find transportation back to the hospital. Daniel slid the wet napkin into the trash, then lifted Ava's hood gently over her hair. Transportation won't make her lungs stronger by morning. That is a medical issue, Brent said. Not a hotel issue. It became a hotel issue when the hospital sent us to the program on that wall. The words came out low, but this time they reached farther. The laughing family by the umbrella stopped talking. Marisol's hand moved toward the old charity card, then stopped when Brent's gaze cut toward her. Ava turned her face toward the founder's wall again. The gold letters reflected in her tired eyes. "Daddy," she said, barely above a whisper. "Why does he know your name if you didn't tell him?" Brent's smile held, but his fingers pressed down on the folder so hard the edge bent. And Daniel finally understood that the first lie was not that the room was unavailable, but that Brent had only just realized who he was. For 1 second after Ava asked the question, nobody moved. Brent's fingers stayed pressed against the folder. Marisol's eyes lifted to him, then to Daniel, then down to the charity card as if the old plastic had suddenly become hot. Daniel felt Ava's small hand tighten around 2 fingers of his left hand. "It's okay," he told her. "But why did he know?" she whispered. "Sometimes people read faster than they listen," Daniel said, and his voice was calm enough that even Brent had to blink. Brent gave a soft laugh, the kind people use when they want a room to believe nothing strange has happened. "Your name is on the card, Mr. Hayes. That is not a mystery." He tapped the edge of the old charity card once with a manicured finger, then slid it a little farther toward Daniel. The gesture was polite. It still felt like a door closing. Ava looked from the card to the wall again, but Daniel gently turned her shoulders away from it, not because he was ashamed, but because he could feel her breathing getting shallow. The security guard had stopped 6 feet away, close enough to make a point, far enough to pretend there was no threat. Rainwater ticked from Daniel's jacket hem onto the floor, 1 drop at a time, darkening the grout between the tiles. Across the lobby, near the vending machines, a young mother was bouncing a toddler against her hip while trying to swipe a debit card with her free hand. The machine gave a flat error beep. She tried again. Error. The toddler whimpered and turned his face into her coat. The mother looked toward the front desk, then away, embarrassed before anyone had even spoken to her. Daniel saw all of it because men like him learned to notice quiet trouble. He had spent years fixing things before they broke completely. Air filters before summer heat, loose pipes before flooding, a little girl's fear before it became panic. He looked down at Ava. In the side pocket of her pharmacy bag was 1 unopened bottle of water, the last one he had bought from the hospital cafeteria with quarters and a folded dollar he had planned to save for parking in the morning. Ava followed his eyes. She was pale, tired, and old enough to understand they did not have extra. Daniel did not ask her to be brave. He simply waited. After a moment, Ava nodded once. "The baby's crying," she said. Daniel's throat tightened, but he smiled at her like she had given him something larger than permission. He took the bottle from the bag and walked 3 steps to the vending area, keeping Ava tucked beside him. "Ma'am," he said gently. The young mother flinched, already prepared to apologize for needing something. Daniel held out the water. "For the little one." She stared at it. "I can't pay you back. Wasn't a sale. Sir, I really—" "He sounds thirsty." The mother took the bottle with both hands. The toddler stopped whimpering long enough to watch Daniel twist the cap loose for her. No one clapped. No music swelled. The guests by the umbrella looked back at their phones. Brent watched from the counter with a small, almost pitying smile, as if Daniel had proven exactly what he believed. Poor people were always giving away the last thing they had and then wondering why the world stepped over them. "Generosity is admirable," Brent said, voice low but sharp enough to carry. "But it does not change capacity." Daniel returned to Ava and eased her down onto the edge of a lobby chair, the one farthest from the polished center where the VIP family stood. "No," he said, lifting her hood away from her face so she could breathe easier. "But it changes what kind of people we become while we're waiting." He did not look at Brent when he said it. He looked at Ava. Her lips were dry, but she gave him a small, proud smile. Then she coughed, a thin sound that made Marisol's shoulders tense behind the desk. Daniel reached into the pharmacy bag for her inhaler spacer and the folded instruction sheet the nurse had given him. As he pulled it free, his worn leather wallet slipped from the pocket of his jacket and hit the tile with a soft slap. A small photograph slid halfway out. Daniel picked it up quickly, Too quickly for a man who had nothing to hide, and just quickly enough for a man who still had something he could not bear to have touched by strangers. It was a picture of his wife, taken years ago in front of the same children's hospital. Her hair blown across one eye, her smile tired but bright. On the back, in faded ink, was an old logo. A small house cupped inside two hands. The same logo, worn almost ghost-like, rested on the corner of Daniel's rejected charity card. Marisol saw it. Her face changed before she could stop it. It was not recognition exactly. It was the look of someone watching two pieces of a locked drawer fall into place. Daniel slid the photo back into his wallet and pressed the wallet to his palm for half a second longer than necessary. He had promised himself he would not use his wife's memory as a weapon. Not in a lobby. Not in front of Ava. Not for a room, not even this room. "Mommy?" Ava asked softly. "Yeah," Daniel said. "She's with us." Brent exhaled as if the scene had become inconveniently sentimental. "Mr. Hayes, we are sympathetic, but emotional circumstances cannot override operating procedure." Marisol's hand moved again beneath the folder, touching the white keycard Daniel had noticed earlier. Brent did not see it this time. He was watching Daniel, expecting anger, expecting begging, expecting something he could label and remove. Daniel only folded the hospital instruction sheet neatly, placed it under Ava's hand, and adjusted the chair so her back was away from the draft of the front doors. "Marisol," Brent said without turning, "do not make side decisions." The words came out soft. The effect was immediate. Marisol's hand stopped on the hidden card. But Daniel heard it, and so did Ava. Side decisions. Not mistakes. Not unavailable rooms. Decisions. Daniel looked at the old charity card, then at the half-covered folder for room 614, then at the logo on the back of the photograph now tucked safely in his wallet. And for the first time that night, Marisol looked at Daniel as if his kindness had not been weakness at all, but the first key to adore someone had been trying very hard to keep closed. Marisol's hands stayed on the hidden keycard as if the plastic itself had a pulse. Daniel saw the fear move through her before she moved her fingers away. Brent had called it a side decision, and now every small human act in the lobby seemed to fall under that warning. Letting Ava sit, letting a tired mother take water, letting the old charity card remain on the counter instead of disappearing into a drawer. "Miss Grant," Brent said, still not raising his voice, "please return to the reservation screen." Marisol obeyed too quickly. The keyboard clicked under her hands, sharp and nervous. Daniel stood beside Ava's chair, one palm resting lightly between her shoulder blades, counting the rhythm of her breathing the way the nurse had taught him. In through the nose if she could. Out slow. Do not let fear make the lungs work harder. Brent adjusted his cuff and gave the security guard a small smile. "As you can see, we are trying to be compassionate, but compassion has to function within procedure." Daniel looked down at the wet napkin he had used to clean the floor, now dark in the trash can beside the coffee station. Procedure should know the difference between help and harm. Brent's expression remained pleasant, but his eyes cooled. "And you should know the difference between a hospital and a hotel." Ava's phone, an old hand-me-down Daniel kept only for medical calls and cartoons during long appointments, buzzed inside the pharmacy bag. She flinched, then fumbled for it with both hands. Daniel answered before the second buzz, stepping just close enough to keep Ava beside him. The screen showed Children's Pulmonary Desk. "This is Daniel Hayes." The nurse on the line sounded tired but kind. She confirmed what Daniel already feared. Ava's early lab work had been moved up, and the doctor did not want her sleeping upright in the truck with damp clothes after the evening treatment. Daniel listened without interrupting. He did not put the call on speaker for the lobby to pity him. He only turned the volume slightly toward Marisol when the nurse said, "If the lodging partner can place her within walking distance, that would be best. She needs rest, warmth, and access to the hospital by morning." Brent stepped closer. "Sir, medical guidance does not create inventory." Daniel lowered the phone, thanked the nurse, and ended the call. Ava looked at him with the brave little face children make when they are trying not to cost too much. "Can we just sleep in the truck?" she asked. Daniel crouched in front of her. The lobby light made her hospital bracelet look almost blue against her wrist. Not if there is a safer choice. Brent exhaled. There is not. Daniel did not answer him. He looked at Marisol, not as a man looking for someone to rescue him, but as someone asking another person not to lie to herself. Could you check something for me? Marisol's shoulders drew in. I already checked the program screen. Not that one. Brent's hand flattened on the counter. Mr. Hayes. Daniel kept his voice low. Check inactive charity keycards. The words changed the air. Not dramatically. No one gasped. But Marisol's eyes lifted, and for the first time she looked at him not like a desperate parent, but like someone who knew where the second door was in a locked room. Brent gave a short laugh. That is internal inventory. Guests don't request internal inventory. I'm not requesting it. Daniel looked at the old charity card, its faded logo still damp at the corner. I'm asking whether the room is unavailable because it is full, or unavailable because someone changed what screen you're allowed to believe. The security guard stopped shifting his weight. The umbrella family near the elevators had gone quiet again. Marisol's fingers hovered above the keys. Brent leaned nearer to her, his voice polished and low. Miss Grant, there are no approved rooms. Daniel caught it again. Approved. Marisol typed one command, then stopped. Brent saw her pause and said, the maintenance block was confirmed. Daniel turned his head slightly. Behind the desk, above a row of clipped radios, a small printer light blinked green. Beside it hung a maintenance request clipboard with carbon copies stacked under a metal clip. The slot for room 614 was empty. Daniel did not point yet. He only asked, confirmed by who? Brent blinked once. Facilities. Then there's a repair ticket. Not always visible at the front desk, but visible to staff. Brent's smile thinned. You seem unusually familiar with hotel operations. Daniel rested both hands on the back of Ava's chair. I used to fix machines for places that forgot people were colder than rooms. Marisol swallowed, and this time she made her choice in a motion so small it almost did not happen. She switched screens. A narrow window appeared, gray and plain, nothing like the polished reservation system meant for guests. Daniel saw the reflection in her glasses before he saw the screen itself. Room 614. Inactive charity keycard. Not issued. Not expired. Waiting. On the main reservation window, still open beneath it, another line read maintenance block. Two truths sat on top of each other. One for the lobby and one for the people allowed behind the desk. Brent reached for the mouse. Marisol pulled her hand back as if she had touched heat. At that exact moment, the radio clipped near the printer crackled. A cheerful male voice came through, unaware of the silence at the counter. VIP arrival for 614, 5 minutes out. Bell team ready. The sound seemed to bounce off the marble and come back sharper. Ava looked toward the elevators. Is that our room number? She whispered, not understanding the weight of it, only remembering the digits she had seen on the folder. Brent moved fast then, too fast for a man with nothing to hide. He stepped between Daniel and the screen, one shoulder blocking the camera dome above the desk, and said, that radio traffic is unrelated. Marisol did not speak. Daniel looked at the inactive keycard, the maintenance block, the empty repair ticket slot, and then the old charity card lying between them like a question no one wanted to touch. If room 614 was broken, why was the Bell team already waiting to carry a VIP family upstairs? The radio went quiet, but the number stayed in the air. 614. Daniel could feel Ava looking at him, waiting for the grown-ups to explain how one room could be broken, empty, unavailable, and ready for a VIP family all at once. Brent stepped farther in front of the screen and gave the security guard a careful nod. Not enough to alarm the lobby, just enough to remind everyone where the power stood. This is exactly why internal systems are not discussed with guests, he said. A child's father is asking about a room, Daniel replied. Not your secrets. Brent's smile held. Mr. Hayes, I am trying very hard to be respectful. Daniel glanced down at Ava. Her shoulders had relaxed a little after sitting, but her breaths still came thin. The hood of his denim jacket framed her face, too large for her, the damp fabric dark against her cheek. "Then respect her enough to check the room before you give it away," he said. The words were not loud, yet the polished lobby seemed to hold them. Near the elevator, the VIP family had stopped beside their suitcases. Their bellman, Marcus, stood with one gloved hand on a luggage handle, his eyes moving between Brent and the folder on the desk. Marisol's fingers hovered near the keyboard, frozen between fear and conscience. Brent turned to her without turning his back fully on Daniel. "Return to the main screen," Marisol whispered. "Mr. Cole, the radio said 6:14. Radio traffic is not assignment confirmation, but the maintenance block is confirmed." Daniel listened to the word confirmed. He had heard men use that word when they wanted a conversation to stop before proof entered the room. Then a small sound cut through the lobby. A soft, uneven beep from the service panel mounted under the side counter. It was almost nothing, the kind of sound people who lived above clean carpets never heard. But Daniel heard it. He had spent years in back hallways where machines told the truth before managers did. One short beep, a pause, two short beeps, airflow active, occupancy mode, not a dead room, not a room shut down for maintenance. Daniel looked toward the panel before he could stop himself. Brent saw the movement. "Please don't touch hotel equipment." Daniel lifted both hands slightly. "Wasn't going to." Ava followed his eyes. "What is it?" "A machine talking," he said softly. "Machines talk. When people stop listening sometimes." Brent let out a controlled breath. "This is becoming disruptive." Daniel took 2 steps toward the trash can, picked up a clean stack of napkins from the coffee station, and returned to Ava's chair. Instead of challenging Brent again, he crouched and wiped the last wet marks from beneath Ava's shoes. The simple act made the room feel strangely smaller. A man who had every reason to be angry was cleaning the floor, so no one could blame his daughter for being there. Marcus lowered his eyes. Marisol looked away quickly, but not before Daniel saw her blink back something. Brent looked impatient now, and impatience was the first crack in his professional face. "Housekeeping can do that," he said. "You told me wet floors were a safety issue." Daniel folded the damp napkins into his palm. "I'm fixing the part one can reach." No one spoke for a moment. The elevator chimed, opening to an empty car, and then closing again because no one moved. Daniel stood and looked at Marisol, not at Brent. "The panel under your counter is reading active climate. If 6:14 were under maintenance, the system would be locked out or tagged for repair. There should be a service ticket." Brent's eyes narrowed. "You are making assumptions based on a light you do not understand." Daniel pointed nowhere. He did not step behind the desk. He did not claim authority. He only said, "Ask it for the service log." Marisol stared at him. "The engineering log? Just the room status line. Print it from the desk terminal if your policy allows printing internal notes." Brent moved at once. "It does not." Marisol's mouth parted. "Actually, for shift reconciliation." Brent's head turned. "Miss Grant." The warning was wrapped in her name. Daniel heard the fear in the silence after it. He looked at Marisol and lowered his voice. "Don't lose your job for me." Her eyes flicked to Ava, then to the white keycard, then to the folder under Brent's fingers. "It wouldn't be for you," she whispered. Brent heard enough. "There is no need to make this dramatic." Daniel's expression did not change. "Then make it simple." The service panel beeped again. One short. Two short. The little sound seemed louder now that everyone was pretending not to hear it. Marisol reached for the keyboard. Brent took one step toward her, but Marcus, still holding the VIP luggage, cleared his throat from near the elevators. "Mr. Cole," he said, careful and quiet. "I was told to stage 6:14 10 minutes ago." Brent looked at him as if a suitcase had started speaking. "Marcus, now is not the time." "Yes, sir." Marcus lowered his voice. "Just saying." That was all, but it shifted the air. Marisol typed. A plain gray window opened. She selected room 614, then print. The small printer behind her woke with a dry mechanical scratch. Brent's hand shot toward the paper before it cleared the tray. Marisol got there first. She tore the strip free, but her hand shook so badly the paper fluttered once. Daniel did not reach for it. He let her decide where the truth should land. Marisol looked at Brent, then at Daniel, then placed the printout on top of the old charity card. For a few seconds, nobody breathed loudly. The line was short, ordinary, devastating. Room 614. Climate active. Housekeeping completed. Minibar sealed. No repair ticket. Front desk block. Maintenance. Daniel read it once. Brent read it too, and all the softness left his face. "Give me that paper," he said. "Not sir. Not please. Not policy." The nearest guest stopped stirring cream into a paper cup. The tiny plastic stick tapped once against the lid and went still. Daniel placed 2 fingers gently on the edge of the printout, not taking it from Marisol, only keeping it from being snatched away. "This proves the room isn't under repair," he said. "It proves nothing about eligibility." Brent's correction came too fast. "It proves enough to..." Pause. "No," Brent said. "It proves a front desk discrepancy that I can resolve privately. Privately is how a child ends up outside." Marisol looked as though she had been struck by the sentence, though Daniel had not aimed it at her. Ava reached for his sleeve. "Daddy, am I in trouble?" Daniel turned immediately, all the evidence in the world becoming smaller than her voice. "No, baby." He touched her cheek with the back of his fingers. "You did nothing wrong. Because the man looks mad." Daniel glanced at Brent, then back at her. Grown-ups get scared when paper tells the truth. Brent stepped behind the counter and angled his body toward the camera dome above the desk. It was a small movement, almost invisible unless someone was watching for it. Daniel was. Marisol was too. Brent pulled out his phone, thumb moving fast beneath the counter edge. A moment later, the front desk phone buzzed with an internal notification, and Daniel saw only the top line as it flashed on the screen before Brent tilted it away. Founder name triggered. Need lobby cleared. Daniel felt the lobby sharpen around him. Every light, every breath, every polished surface suddenly part of a larger machine. Room 614 was not the real secret. Someone above Brent already knew Daniel's name, and they were more afraid of that name than they were of a sick child sleeping in the rain. The words on Brent's phone vanished almost as soon as Daniel saw them, but they left a colder mark than the rain on his jacket. Founder name triggered. Need lobby cleared. Daniel kept his fingers on the edge of the service log, not gripping it, only holding it in place the way a man might hold a door open for someone frightened to walk through. Room 614 was printed in plain black ink between his old charity card and Marisol's trembling hands. Climate active, housekeeping completed, minibar sealed, no repair ticket. It did not prove everything. Daniel knew that. It proved one thing clearly enough to make everyone at the counter uncomfortable. The room had not been broken when Ava was told to leave. Brent slid his phone into his jacket pocket and recovered his voice too carefully. "This has become a misunderstanding of internal language," he said. "A maintenance block can mean several things." Daniel looked at him. "Then say which one." Brent's jaw moved. "Occupancy controls. Revenue holds. Safety considerations." That's 3 different answers. The lobby grew quieter around them. The coffee machine hissed behind the seating area, then clicked off, leaving only the soft rush of rain against the glass doors. Ava leaned into the chair with Daniel's denim jacket around her shoulders, watching adults speak around her sickness as if it were a scheduling inconvenience. Daniel noticed her fingers rubbing the edge of her hospital bracelet, a habit she had picked up during long waits when she did not want to ask how much things cost. He wanted to pick her up and carry her out. He wanted to make one phone call that would tear the smile off Brent's face. But anger was a match. Evidence was a lamp. And Ava needed light more than heat. Marisol stared at the printed log as if it might disappear if she blinked. "There are other rooms," she whispered, so softly Daniel almost missed it. Brent turned. "Excuse me?" Marisol's face drained, but she did not take the words back. "I mean, there were other charity rooms in the block earlier." Brent stepped closer to her side of the counter, polite enough to look managerial, close enough to make her shrink. Miss Grant, you are not authorized to discuss inventory history with a guest. Marcus, the bellman by the elevators, shifted his grip on the VIP luggage. The brass tag on the largest suitcase still read 614, the numbers catching the lobby light each time the bag rocked. He looked at Daniel, then at Ava, then down at his shoes. His voice came out low. It's not the first weekend. Brent's head snapped toward him. Marcus, the bellman swallowed. I'm not trying to make trouble. Then don't. Marcus lowered his eyes, but he had already opened the door. Daniel turned slightly, careful not to leave Ava alone in Brent's shadow. What do you mean, not the first weekend? Marcus looked toward the security guard, then toward the camera dome over the desk. Families from the hospital come over. They wait. Sometimes they have cards like his. Then we're told the charity wing is blocked. Later, paying guests go up. Different names. Same rooms. Brent gave a thin laugh. Bell staff do not see allocation records. No, Marcus said. But we carry the bags. That simple sentence sat on the marble counter heavier than an accusation. Marisol inhaled sharply, then moved her mouse before fear could stop her. She opened a transaction screen and searched the last 3 weekends. Daniel did not lean over the desk. He stood where guests were allowed to stand and let the truth come into public space by itself. 3 receipts appeared one above another. Room 612. Room 614. Room 616. Each had been marked charity unavailable first, then reopened under a code Daniel did not recognize. Donor overflow. Each had a paid balance. Each payment had been routed under regional adjustment, not lodging foundation credit. Marisol covered her mouth with one hand. That money didn't go to the fund, she said. Brent's voice sharpened. You don't know what those codes mean. Then explain them, Daniel said. Brent looked at the screen, then away too fast. He reached for the keyboard. Marisol pulled the mouse back, and the small movement cost her. Brent lowered his voice until it no longer performed for the lobby. You need to think very carefully about your future here. Daniel heard it. So did Marcus. So did Ava, though she did not understand all of it. Marisol's eyes shone, but she kept her hand on the mouse. Mr. Hayes, she whispered. If I send this anywhere, they'll say I accessed restricted files. Daniel felt the old ache rise in him, the familiar weight of being asked to choose between a fast explosion and a careful rescue. He could use the paper right now. He could accuse Brent in front of the guests. He could force Marisol into the center of the room and make her say what she knew. But he had seen too many people with less power become the first sacrifice when a system was caught bleeding. He placed his palm flat on the counter, beside the old charity card, not on top of it. Don't send it to me, he said. Send it to the foundation's official email. Use your hotel account. Include the service log and the receipts. That gives it a timestamp they can't pretend you made at home. Marisol looked at him as if he had just moved her out of the path of something she had not known was falling. You're helping me? I'm trying not to let them make you the whole story. Brent's face changed for half a second. Not anger exactly. Calculation. He took out his phone again and turned away, but the glass behind the desk reflected his screen just enough for Daniel to see his thumb moving over a contact labeled V. Langford. The name hit somewhere deep in Daniel's memory, not as a wound yet, but as a locked drawer shifting open. Victor Langford had been regional leadership. Smooth voice, fundraising smile. One of the men brought in after Daniel stepped back from the foundation because grief had made every meeting feel like standing in a room full of his wife's absence. Daniel looked down at Ava, at her small hand under the hospital bracelet, and did not let that memory show on his face. Marisol typed quickly. The printer did not run this time. The evidence left through the wire, invisible and more dangerous than paper. A confirmation tone sounded from the computer. Message sent. For 1 second, the lobby seemed to pause around that tiny chime. Then Brent's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and a bead of sweat appeared at his hairline despite the cold air from the vents. Everyone needs to stop, he said. This will be handled internally. Internally is where it happened, Daniel replied. Brent's eyes flashed. He stepped closer to Marisol and spoke in a tone too soft for the guests. But Daniel was near enough to hear every word. Your brother's trade school still needs that employment recommendation, doesn't it? Marisol went still. The fear that crossed her face was not about a job anymore. It was about rent, family, the fragile ladder poor people build one rung at a time while someone above them keeps a hand on the rope. Daniel straightened. Don't threaten her because your paper doesn't match your story. Brent looked back at him, smile returning in pieces. You are hearing things through stress, Mr. Hayes. Before Daniel could answer, the front desk phone rang. Marisol stared at it. Brent reached first, but she picked it up. A woman's voice came through, calm, older, controlled by years of boardrooms and hospital corridors. Marisol listened, then looked at Daniel differently. Yes, Ms. Ward, she said. The camera footage is still active. Yes, the keycard is here. The guest is still in the lobby. Brent's face lost color at the name. Evelyn Ward, chair of the foundation, was not in the building yet. But the room had changed as if she had stepped through the doors. Marisol put the phone down slowly. She said no one deletes anything. No one moves the family. And no one touches room 614 until she arrives with hospital social services. Daniel looked at the service log, the donor overflow receipts, the white keycard, the old charity card, and the golden wall behind them. The truth had grown too large for Brent's smile, too documented for a private office, and too close to Ava's hospital bracelet to be postponed politely. The lobby did not become quieter because Evelyn Ward had arrived. It became more careful. The glass doors opened, and a woman in her early 60s stepped in from the rain wearing a dark wool coat. No jewelry except a small silver pin shaped like two hands around a house. Beside her came a hospital social worker with a tablet under one arm and Ava's doctor in a blue jacket thrown over scrubs, his hospital badge still swinging from the hurried walk across the street. Evelyn did not rush to Daniel. She did not hug Ava. She did not look at Brent with theatrical outrage. She stopped just inside the lobby, let the doors close behind her, and studied the room the way a judge might study a witness before asking the first question. Daniel stood near Ava's chair with one hand on the backrest, his jacket still around his daughter's shoulders. His boots had dried enough to leave dull marks instead of puddles. The old charity card lay on the counter beside the service log, the white key card, and the receipts Marisol had printed. Behind them, the founder's wall glowed warmly, its gold letters almost too beautiful for what had happened beneath them. Brent straightened his suit jacket. Ms. Ward, he said, stepping forward with a relief that looked rehearsed. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry you were pulled away from the hospital event. We have a parent who became upset over a misunderstanding in our lodging policy. Evelyn's eyes passed from Brent to Daniel, then to Ava, then to Marisol, who stood behind the counter with both hands folded so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. Then we will begin with the misunderstanding, Evelyn said. Not with the parent. Brent's smile flickered. The social worker moved toward Ava and crouched beside her, keeping her voice gentle. Ava, I'm not here to ask hard questions. I just want to make sure you're warm enough. Ava nodded and pulled Daniel's denim jacket closer. My dad said I can breathe slow. The doctor listened to her chest briefly, then looked at Daniel. She needs rest, not a lobby argument. Daniel nodded once. That's all I asked for. Brent lifted one hand, careful and open-palmed. And we were trying to help within policy. Evelyn turned to Marisol. Show me the first item. Marisol picked up Daniel's old charity card. Her hand trembled, but her voice found a thin line of steadiness. Mr. Hayes presented this at 9:12 p.m. The system declined it as charity stay unavailable. Brent added quickly, because no approved charity inventory was open. Evelyn held out her hand for the card. When Marisol placed it there, Evelyn looked at the faded logo, the house cupped in two hands, then at the silver pin on her own coat. Something small moved behind her eyes, but she did not say what it was. Old format, she said, but not meaningless. Brent seized the opening. Exactly. Old formats create confusion. Some guests believe possession of a card guarantees lodging, but the program has evolved since its original charitable structure. It was the kind of sentence designed to sound responsible while hiding the part that mattered. A few guests near the seating area nodded faintly, relieved to have a reasonable explanation. For one dangerous second, the room began leaning back toward Brent. Then Daniel spoke. If it evolved, there should be a record of who changed the rule. Evelyn looked at him for the first time with more than concern. Not belief. Tension. Brent turned. Slightly. Mr. Hayes, governance documents are not part of a front desk dispute. Daniel kept his voice even. A child was turned away under a rule nobody has shown. The words landed quietly. Evelyn set the charity card down on the counter. Next item. Marisol placed the service log beside it. The little strip of paper looked almost ridiculous under the lobby lights, too thin to hold so much weight. Room 614, Marisol said. Climate active. Housekeeping completed. Minibar sealed. No repair ticket. But the front desk reservation screen had it marked as maintenance block. Brent stepped closer. A block can be used for multiple operational reasons. Maintenance is sometimes a placeholder. Staff use shorthand. Who entered it? Evelyn asked. Brent hesitated less than a second, but Daniel saw it. So did Marisol. The desk was busy, Brent said. We would need the audit log. Evelyn looked at the security guard near the door. No one leaves the desk terminal. Then she looked back to Marisol. Audit log. Brent's voice hardened under the polish. Ms. Ward, with respect, doing this in the lobby creates unnecessary exposure. I recommend we move to the office. Daniel touched Ava's shoulder. He did not step forward. The lobby was public when she was being asked to leave. Evelyn did not smile, but her gaze stayed on him a little longer. Then the correction can begin in the same room. Marisol opened the audit log. The screen reflected in the black marble behind the counter. 9:12 p.m. Charity card scanned. 9:12 p.m. Room 614 status changed from charity hold to maintenance block. 9:14 p.m. VIP folio created under donor overflow adjustment. The guests who had relaxed a moment earlier stopped moving again. One of them lowered a coffee cup without drinking. Brent cleared his throat. Those timestamps look dramatic without context. Donor overflow is a regional accounting category. It does not imply misconduct. Evelyn's eyes sharpened. Who authorized donor overflow tonight? Brent glanced at his phone. Regional leadership. Name. His jaw tightened. Victor Langford. As if summoned by the sound of his name, the front desk monitor blinked, and a video call opened. From the regional office, Victor Langford appeared in a charcoal suit, seated in a room with framed charity gala photographs behind him. His smile was warm enough for donors and cold enough for employees. Evelyn, he said, I'm glad you're there. I understand an emotional situation has been allowed to escalate. Daniel looked down at Ava before he looked at the screen. The child's eyelids were heavy, but she was watching the gold letters on the wall again. Victor continued. Mr. Hayes seems to be misreading a charitable policy that has several operational layers. Evelyn's head turned slightly. How did you know his name? The question was gentle. That made it worse. Victor paused. Only a breath. I was briefed by Brent. Daniel looked at Brent. Brent looked at the counter. Marisol's lips parted, and Evelyn noticed. At what time? She asked. Brent said, after the service issue came up. Marisol whispered. Before. The word was so small it almost disappeared under the hum of the lights. Evelyn turned to her. Say that again. Marisol's eyes filled, but she did not cry. The message came before you arrived. It said founder name triggered. Need lobby cleared. A sound moved through the room. Not a gasp. More like people realizing they had been standing beside something sharp. Victor leaned toward his camera. That is being taken out of context. Founder name could refer to an internal donor category. Not this gentleman. Ava lifted one hand from under the jacket and pointed toward the wall. But that's his whole name, she said softly. Daniel Robert Hayes. No one treated her like she had solved the case. She had only read what was in front of everyone. And somehow that made it heavier. Evelyn turned from Ava to the founder's wall, then back to Daniel. Is Robert your middle name? Daniel's face changed in a way only Ava seemed to understand. Not pride, not fear. Grief held very still. Yes, ma'am. Victor's smile faded by a fraction. Brent reached for the folder with the VIP check-in sheet, but Marcus the bellman stepped forward and set the luggage tag on the counter before Brent could cover anything else. 614. The numbers faced Evelyn. I staged that room. Before Mr. Hayes was told there were no rooms, Marcus said. I thought it was a normal VIP arrival. I don't think that anymore. Evelyn placed one hand flat on the counter beside the card, the service log, the receipts, and the tag. Then she looked at Victor on the screen. Open the Foundation archive. Victor's expression hardened. Evelyn, that is not necessary for lobby review. It is now. The social worker stood behind Ava. Daniel rested both hands on the chair and said nothing. The monitor shifted from Victor's face to a login screen, then to a sealed archive folder labeled Original Lodging Foundation Charter. And as Evelyn entered her access code, the whole lobby waited for the file that would either bury Daniel's name forever or explain why it had been shining on that wall all along. The archive opened on the lobby monitor with a soft electronic chime, and the first thing everyone saw was not Daniel's face, not Victor's explanation, not Brent's policy language, but a scanned signature in blue ink, Daniel Robert Hayes. Beneath it was the original charter of the Children's Family Lodging Foundation, dated years earlier, with the old logo of a small house cupped inside two hands stamped in the upper corner. The same logo sat faded on Daniel's rejected charity card. The same logo had been hidden on the back of his wife's photograph. Evelyn Ward did not speak immediately. She leaned closer to the screen, reading line by line, and the whole lobby seemed to lower its breathing to match her silence. Rain tapped the glass behind Daniel. The service panel under the counter gave one small beep and then stopped. Ava's fingers tightened around the sleeve of his denim jacket. Daddy? She whispered. Is that you? Daniel did not look at the wall. He looked at the floor for one moment, because grief had a way of making marble feel softer than memory. Yes, baby, he said. That's my name. Victor's face remained on a smaller video window in the corner of the monitor. He tried to smile, but his mouth moved without finding shape. Evelyn, he said. The original charter is old. The program has been restructured several times. We should review this in the proper setting. Evelyn lifted one hand without taking her eyes off the screen. The gesture was small, but it stopped him. Read the funding source, she said to Marisol. Marisol looked terrified, but she obeyed. Her voice shook at first, then steadied because the words were not hers to invent. Initial endowment funded by the life insurance settlement of Rebecca Hayes, deceased spouse of founding donor Daniel Robert Hayes, designated for emergency lodging for families of children receiving treatment at Northside Children's Hospital. The name Rebecca landed in the lobby like a candle being lit in a room that had forgotten it was dark. Daniel's hand moved instinctively to the worn leather wallet in his pocket. He did not take the photograph out. He only pressed his palm against it through the fabric. Ava looked up at him, her eyes wet but clear. Mommy helped build this place? Daniel swallowed once. She helped build the promise. Evelyn scrolled down. Her silver pin caught the lobby light as her hand paused over a paragraph boxed in the original document. There, Daniel said quietly. Evelyn read it aloud herself. No child's family shall be displaced, denied, or downgraded from charitable lodging for the purpose of paid occupancy, donor overflow, VIP preference, or revenue target adjustment. The words did not need music. They did not need a raised voice. They simply removed every hiding place in the room. Brent's hand slipped from the counter, and the folder he had been protecting slid a few inches across the marble. The VIP luggage tag marked 614 rested beside Daniel's old charity card, beside the service log, beside the receipts, beside the white key card that had never been issued. One by one, Evelyn placed the evidence in order so even the guests by the elevator could understand what had happened. At 9:12, Mr. Hayes' charity card was scanned, she said. Marisol pulled up the camera timeline. The lobby appeared on the monitor from above. Daniel at the counter, Ava under his wet jacket, Marisol scanning the card. At 9:12, Evelyn continued, Room 614 was changed from charity hold to maintenance block. The audit log appeared beside the footage. Brent's employee, ID, sat next to the change. His face had gone pale in the reflection of the marble. At 9:14, a VIP folio was created under donor overflow. The receipt opened next, clean and undeniable, with a paid balance attached to the same room. Marcus lowered his head near the elevators as if ashamed to have carried the luggage, though he had been the one who finally spoke. Evelyn clicked again. Service log. Climate active. Housekeeping completed. Minibar sealed. No repair ticket. The gray strip Marisol had printed was now on the screen, matching the paper under Daniel's fingertips. And then, Evelyn said, her voice colder now, a regional message was sent. The internal message opened. Founder name triggered. Need lobby cleared. No one breathed loudly after that. Brent looked at Victor's video window, but Victor was staring away from the camera. For the first time all night, his donor smile was gone. That message is being misinterpreted, Victor said, but his voice had dried out. Founder name referred to an internal category. Evelyn turned her head slightly. Then why did you say Mr. Hayes had no standing before anyone here told you his full name? Victor's eyes flicked toward the edge of his screen, perhaps to notes, perhaps to an assistant, perhaps to any exit that was not there. I was briefed. By whom? He did not answer quickly enough. The silence answered first. Brent tried to step in. Ms. Ward, I made an operational call under pressure. If there were errors in classification, I take responsibility for the desk confusion. Marisol's breath caught. Daniel heard what Brent was doing before anyone explained it. He was building a small box and trying to put her inside it. Daniel took his fingers off the service log and looked at Evelyn. Marisol didn't create donor overflow. Brent turned on him. You don't know what she did. I know what fear looks like when it's following orders. Marisol covered her mouth, and for a second the young woman behind the desk was no longer a uniform or a mistake or a convenient sacrifice. She was a person who had been standing under someone else's thumb while sick children were sent back into the rain. Evelyn faced her. Miss Grant, were you instructed to mark charity inventory unavailable when paid occupancy fell below target? Marisol looked at Brent. Brent's eyes hardened in warning. Then she looked at Ava, small and tired under Daniel's jacket, and reached beneath the folder with trembling fingers. She pulled out the white keycard and placed it on the counter. It made the smallest sound, plastic touching stone, but every person in the lobby heard it. Yes, she said, and tonight room 614 could have been issued. I was told not to issue it. The room went completely still. The elevator doors opened behind the VIP family, waited, and closed again with no one stepping in. A paper cup near the coffee station crackled in someone's hand. The security guard lowered his eyes. Brent's lips parted, but no professional sentence came out. Victor's video froze for half a second, then returned with his face turned slightly away from the camera. Evelyn took the keycard and held it up just long enough for the camera above the desk, the social worker, the doctor, and every witness in the lobby to see it. Room 614 is released back to the charitable program immediately, she said. The entire charity wing is frozen from paid conversion until hospital social services verifies every room. Mr. Cole, you are relieved of duty pending investigation. Mr. Langford, your access to foundation systems is suspended effective now. Victor finally found his voice. Evelyn, you do not want to make a public accusation without counsel. I am not making an accusation, she said. I am preserving evidence. That sentence ended him more completely than anger would have. Evelyn turned to Daniel. Mr. Hayes, I owe you and your daughter an apology. Daniel looked at Ava first. She was staring at the keycard as if it were not plastic, but a door her mother had been holding open from somewhere she could not see. "So Mommy was still helping kids," Ava whispered. "Even after she went to heaven?" No one answered right away. The lobby had heard insults, policy, excuses, receipts, and signatures. But that small question took all the air from the room. Daniel crouched in front of her and touched her hands, careful around the hospital bracelet. "Yes," he said. "And tonight we make sure they didn't close her door." Evelyn held the white keycard out to him, but Daniel did not take it immediately. His eyes moved past the counter to the rain-dark windows, to the hospital lights across the street, to the two tired families still waiting near the far wall with pharmacy bags and folded discharge papers. When he finally stood, his voice was quiet enough that everyone had to listen. "Open the rooms for them first," he said. "Then we can talk about what happens to me." And in the silence that followed, the power in the lobby changed hands without anyone raising a fist. The first sound after Daniel asked to open the rooms for the other families was not applause. It was the quiet click of Evelyn Ward turning the white keycard over in her hand, then placing it back on the counter as if it had become evidence instead of plastic. The lobby moved slowly after that. Not because people were confused, but because everyone suddenly understood that speed was how the wrong thing had been hidden for so long. The hospital social worker crossed to the two waiting families by the far wall and spoke to them gently. Marcus took their bags himself, no longer looking at the floor. Marisol printed the room releases with hands that still shook, but this time no one told her to stop. Brent stood beside the desk without his name badge, his phone sealed in an evidence envelope by Evelyn's assistant, his polished expression gone flat and colorless. Victor Langford's video window disappeared from the monitor after Evelyn suspended his access, leaving only the Foundation archive open behind the desk, Daniel's signature still visible under the lobby lights. Ava watched all of it from the chair, wrapped in Daniel's old denim jacket, her eyes heavy but calmer now. "Are we going upstairs?" she asked. Daniel crouched in front of her and zipped the jacket a little higher beneath her chin. "Soon. But you gave our room away first." "No," he said softly. "We gave the promise back." Evelyn heard that. She did not interrupt. She waited until the social worker confirmed that both families had rooms, until the doctor had checked. Ava's breathing again, until the first elevator carried a mother, a sleeping little boy, and two pharmacy bags up toward the charity wing. Only then did Evelyn step beside Daniel. She did not offer him money. She did not speak to him like a man who had won a prize. She lowered her voice and said, "Mr. Hayes, I saw what you did before you knew anyone would listen. You protected your daughter. You protected another family. You protected my employee even while she was part of the desk that turned you away. That is not poverty. That is character." Daniel looked at Marisol, who stood with her hands folded over the counter, shame and relief fighting across her face. "She was scared," he said. "Scared people make mistakes." Marisol's eyes filled. "I still made them." "Then tell the truth all the way through," Daniel said. "That's how you stop being used by people who count on your fear." Evelyn turned to her. "You will be treated as a protected witness. You will keep your position during the investigation if you cooperate fully. No retaliation, no quiet firing, no bad reference for your brother. I'll put that in writing tonight." Marisol covered her mouth with both hands, but she did not collapse into tears. She stood straighter. That was the first piece of her dignity coming back. Across the lobby, Brent tried to speak to Evelyn one last time, something about context and private review, but she raised one hand. "You will provide every shift record, every room conversion, every message from regional leadership, and every donor overflow folio from the last 12 months. You are relieved of duty pending investigation." Brent's face tightened, but no argument survived the evidence still lying on the counter. The service log, the receipts, the luggage tag, the old charity card, the white key card, and the archive on the screen. Justice did not shout at him. It simply left him with no door to walk through. Room 614 was warm when Daniel finally carried Ava inside. The bed was made with a white blanket folded at the foot, and the curtains were open just enough to show the hospital lights across the street, soft and steady through the rain. Ava's shoes were still damp, so Daniel took them off carefully and placed them near the heater. Then he sat on the edge of the bed and rubbed her feet through her socks until the color came back into her toes. She looked around the room like it was not a hotel room at all, but something her mother had sent ahead of them. "Does Mommy know we're here?" she asked. Daniel took his wallet from his pocket. The leather was worn thin at the fold. He opened it and looked at Rebecca's photograph, the one with the old logo on the back, the one he had almost hidden from the world because some memories were too tender to place under fluorescent lights. "I think she knows the promise held," he said. Ava touched the edge of the photo with one finger. "You didn't tell them you were important." Daniel smiled sadly. "Being important doesn't help much if you forget to be kind." Later, downstairs, Evelyn had the founder's wall covered for a few minutes, while a temporary plaque was added beneath Daniel's name. It did not praise wealth. It did not call him a hero. It read, "Rebecca Hayes Family Lodging Promise, founded so no child's family would be displaced for paid occupancy." Under the glass case below it, Evelyn placed Daniel's old charity card beside a copy of the original charter and the white keycard from room 614. What had looked like a worn-out piece of plastic at the beginning of the night now looked like a witness. By morning, the foundation had frozen all paid conversions from the charity wing. The hospital would confirm family eligibility directly. Every room status change would require a dual audit trail. Staff would have a confidential line to report pressure from management. Families wrongly denied in the past year would be contacted, reimbursed, and offered lodging credits for future care. It was not glamorous. It was paperwork, policy, phone calls, signatures, and accountability. But that was what real justice often looked like when it intended to last longer than a dramatic night. Before sunrise, Evelyn returned to room 614. Ava was asleep, one hand resting on the sleeve of Daniel's denim jacket. Daniel sat in the chair beside her bed, shoes still off, socks damp, eyes open but peaceful. Evelyn placed a folder quietly on the small table. "When you're ready," she said, "the foundation needs a family advocate who remembers why it exists." Daniel looked at the folder, then at Ava. "I still drive nights. I still fix units when people call. Then advise us like a man who knows what breaks before the rich rooms feel it." For the first time that night, Daniel almost laughed. Not because the pain was gone, but because it no longer owned the whole room. He did not answer right away. He reached over and adjusted the blanket around Ava's shoulders. Outside the window, the rain had stopped, leaving the hospital lights reflected in the wet street like a line of small, steady candles. In the quiet, Daniel placed Rebecca's photo beside the old charity card copy and rested his hand over both. He had not come to that hotel to reclaim his name. He had come to keep his daughter safe. But sometimes a small kindness, a child's honest question, and a promise kept in the dark are enough to turn a locked door into justice. Dignity never needed to raise its voice. It only needed one true room to open.